Let me share my screen. All right, I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. Okay, so at the Office of Victim Advocate, we believe in creating safer, caring communities where justice thrives. Gotta love PowerPoint. There we go. So one of the biggest pieces that we feel really has stemmed from Act 77 is something that we already work very hard on in victim service community, and that's collaboration. We believe that it cannot just be one of us. It has to be all of us. And as someone at a recent meeting that I was at in Allegheny County stated, Act 77 just simply solidifies that collaboration. So one of the biggest pieces to Act 77 that the victim community is much excited about, but at the same time willing to watch as it unfolds, is victim standing. Victims now have standing, and it's in regards to their rights, which is something that I think has been advocated for on behalf of victims for quite some time. Some of the basic rights, which all of you are well aware, and I simply do not need to preach to the choir, is to be informed, to be heard, to be accompanied, and to be restored. So the significant thing with Act 77 in regards to the Office of Victim Advocate is the language surrounding reporting of victim information to OVA in regards to those cases where an offender has been sentenced to a state sentence. I'm sure in many of the counties, and I know that everyone does something slightly different so that it works for your space. Previously, disposition letters would go out with OVA registration information to a victim, of which then the victim would fill out and send to our office. This act shifted that and has the situation where you then can just report it directly to us. What we looked at, though, when looking at this with both the District Attorneys Association and our offices and IT, was how do we help this process in a technical standpoint, because we've definitely moved to a much more technical world. And so obviously we have the registration form, which you are all very well aware of, and I'm sure have used. So we basically took that with IT and said, how can we consume this in an IT capacity? And we said, and how do we do it in a safe and secure capacity? Because being in a technological age, we're obviously very concerned about making sure that data is safe. And so our project manager started working with JNet to determine how it is that we could create this secure portal to provide victim information to our office from your offices. And obviously, you know, there are scenarios where certain services, victim services in the community aren't necessarily housed directly in the district attorney's office. So working with JNet, who was very viable and helpful in this process, we decided to reach out and start speaking to district attorneys across the Commonwealth to see if we could set up a scenario where they would support the process for victim services to have access to this particular application in JNet, and not necessarily have to have access to everything else. And we were extremely successful. JNet worked hand in hand with our project manager, Tim Wright, and we have definitely been reaching out. I've been talking to many of you via email, some of you via Teams and Zoom and phone, and some of you in person. And we are definitely live at this point in time and working on improving the process as we go. So JNet became our host, and it's a safe, secure platform that we feel more comfortable with. The information is inputted on your end in the county in a form much like the one that you're familiar with when it comes to the registration form, and is sent to our office for us to do our due diligence and place them in our system so that we are triggered for notification in regards to reception, release, transfers, you name it, so that we can provide appropriate notification to the victim. I am going to now pass this to Diana Reed, who is our IT, we like to call her IT specialist. I'm sure she has a specific title, but We call her also our IT guru. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pass it to her.
Thank you, Penny. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Great. Okay, I am going to share my screen. Okay, so thank you for that great introduction, Penny. Today, I want to do a PowerPoint presentation that walks you through the registration form, online submission, and do a demonstration using the test site, the version of the portal that doesn't really send information to OVA. It looks just like the real website. So I want to get you familiar with the portal for victim registration. Make sure you know where to access it. Understand how to create a registration form for an individual versus for CYS or for an organization. And to understand the two form status types, draft and submitted, just so that you know what those mean. So today we'll go through the registration form, accessing it, using the search, viewing a form, whether it's submitted or saved as a draft, creating a new form to fill in offender and court case information, victim survivor information, registration details for times when this is applicable, and how to review for one last shot that form that you filled out to make sure it's right, and how you know that it's been submitted. After that, I'll do a demonstration using the test site to do a search, create a registration, save it as a draft, and to create an organization or CYS registration form. So just to take it back to the basics, this portal replaces this form that you see here that people have been using to provide victim information to the Office of Victim Advocate. So a lot of the fields that you saw on this form are there on the DA portal website. To access the portal, you would log into JNet with a JNet username and password. The OVA security role is required to be able to access the portal, and it would be under the Justice Data menu down here under Victim Registration Portal. Registration form search is the first page that you see when you log into the portal. And you can see here that you have to specify at least one thing to do a search. If you want to look for something that you're not sure if you submitted it or not, you can come here and click submitted and click search and see what you have submitted recently in case you lost track. Now, this only allows you to search registration forms from your county that you work for. And for submitted forms, you can see those going back 90 days. Draft forms are available until you either submit them, or if you delete them, obviously, then they'll be gone. To search by SID, the state ID number of the offender, just enter numbers, no dashes, and that will show you what forms you've created using that SID number. This created date at the end will only activate and be able to be used if you have specified a status of draft or submitted. So if you're clicking in here and wondering why isn't this working, it's because this only works if you have selected a status. That's because of the reason I talked about earlier, how the drafts are available forever until you submit them, but submitted forms are only available for the past 90 days. If you do a search and no results are found and you want to try again, you click the View Filters button to see the top of that page again. If you do get search results, they'll appear in a list. You may need to scroll down on the right to see everything in the list. You know you've reached the bottom when you see this count at the bottom here. To view a record in the list, you just click on the row anywhere. And then this page will come up, which displays the form as far as whatever it has on it. And you can see there are navigation arrows here to go left and right so that you don't have to go back to the list, pick another record. You can just click those arrows to surf your results to find the form that you're looking for. So the lower sections of the form are collapsed on page load. That way we fit everything, most things, as soon as you load the screen as well as the buttons. So to view a collapsed section like this registration details section, you just click anywhere on this row. You don't have to try to get your mouse on this little down arrow. You can click anywhere on this row. And then it will open. To return to the search results, you just click back to search results. And if you find, okay, I did not submit that registration form already for that particular case, you can click the plus button on the top right. This is always going to be here to get started on a new form. And when you do that, a new form data entry page appears with 5 steps across the top: offender court case, victim survivor, address, registration details, and review and submit. We call this a breadcrumb navigation so that you can see your progress along the way. The first step is, of course, to fill in the offender and court case information here. You can see there's a little asterisk for all of the fields that are required for you to enter some data. Once you have the offender identity in here, you can click Save as Draft in case you need to run to lunch or take a phone call, take a break, whatever the case may be. That way you can pick up where you left off later. As soon as you do that, that form progress is saved going forward every time that you click Save and Next. Or if you go back to search results, what you have will be there, and it will be in draft status, one of the 2 status types. So if you click Cancel, the form will display here with a red message that it isn't submitted yet. And you can either go back to search results, delete the draft if you realize it was done in error, like it wasn't a personal injury crime, there's no safety concerns, you actually didn't have to enter this case, you can delete your draft, or if it's a duplicate. And to pick it back up again, you would click the edit button and just continue where you were. For the court case information, we have court docket numbers to be entered in a predetermined format. So each piece of the docket number individually is entered to help ensure that it is accurate once OVA receives this form and tries to register the victims. For example, a common pleas court docket number, which starts with CP, like this, you would just do it between the dashes, each piece at a time. You would pick CP first, and then the county number is the next field. So this one would be Adams County, since numerically alphabetically it's the first county. Then CR, the case number and the year. A magisterial district court number starts with MJ and then has a 5-digit number, the district court number, and then a similar remaining format. So you just enter it in those pieces. The last 2 fields are text fields that you type, as well as the second one for the MJ. The Philadelphia court numbers begin with MC and then 5-1, since alphabetically, that's where Philadelphia falls. And then the same stuff after that. So every docket number must have at least one offense tracking number or OTN entered on this form for it to be submitted. So you just type the OTN value in here in the OTN field that's below the docket number. If you have another OTN that you want to provide, you can click the little plus and it will display another OTN box below it. And once you're done with this docket and its OTNs, click the add button and it will add what you have entered over here on the right. And if you realize you've done this in error and you added the wrong case, you can click the little red X to remove the entry and do it again. Down at the bottom, there is an additional information text box as a catch-all. If there's some problem that you're having with the SID number, you want to notate that here. If you want to provide the type of case that it is, a little snippet that would be helpful, you can put that here as well. This is just one of, I think, 3 text boxes that you have to explain away things like that. Click Save and Next, and you'll move to the Victim Survivor page. And the default selection for the type of victim survivor is individual, since that's what most of these will be. And you'll enter the name of the victim who is being registered. It's important to have the spelling right for OVA. As much as possible, starting with the first name. If you don't have their date of birth, you check the estimated unknown date of birth box, but you still do have to type something for the date of birth field there. If any demographics such as sex or race are intentionally not shared by the victim, then check the box for that. But if you just don't know what it is, there are selections for unknown or did not disclose, no response. In either case, if it was intentionally not shared or you just happen to not know, make sure to select the unknown value for the required fields. If you have the driver's license or state ID card number for the victim, you can select the state and the ID card number. If they are currently incarcerated and you have their jail ID, please provide that in the specified box. At the bottom are the preferred contact method and special needs fields. So the preferred means of receiving written communication from OVA, email and or mail. Or if they are transient or have limited English proficiency, you'll want to select that here so that OVA knows that. And there is a little text box to explain any selection that you made or anything else. So to proceed, you'll click Save and Next and enter the mailing address. If they don't have a mailing address or don't want to provide it, you can just click Save and Next to skip this, but you will need to provide an email address to submit the form. Here you can add an email address and up to 3 phone numbers. And if you have the information on whether it's okay to leave voicemail, indicate that. There is another comments box. When you click Save and Next, then you're into the registration details. So what is their type of involvement? Are they a family member of a homicide victim? Are they a victim of crime? Are they a parent guardian of a minor victim? You'll select that here, and you'll answer if there are minor victims involved, yes or no. And if the victim wants to register for automated notifications with updates about the offender, 7. And there is another comments box here. You can add deceased family members when that is applicable. If you do indicate that there are minor victims, you will have fields to enter a minor, but remember to click Add after you enter in the name because that adds it to the form. If you have selected an organization, the screen looks a little different. You'll have an organization name field and the ability to put in a point of contact. If you choose Children and Youth Services, you will have to select which Children and Youth Services office is in question here, and you will have to indicate a point of contact, typically the caseworker. If the case involves a minor victim, like I mentioned earlier, the system displays this minor victims data entry area. You'll need a first and last name, date of birth, and relationship type to add them to the list. If anything is unknown, you do have an estimated unknown date of birth field checkbox here, and you do have the comments field to explain away any exceptions. Just remember to click the add button to add the information to the form. And again, any of these registration forms can capture information on deceased victims. You need at least a first name and click the add button to add them to the form. For SAVN, the automated email, phone, or text message updates about the offender, such as if they've been transferred or released from custody, you will see a SAVN data entry page when you click Save and Next on that previous page, and you'll want to select if the victim survivor wants emails, phone calls, and or text messages, and then you'll select the phone type, typically cell, and enter a 4-digit SAVN PIN. I don't believe we prompt for the PIN if there is email. You'll just click Save and Next to get to the last page, review and submit. At this final step, you have to look over your form, make sure everything looks good before you click this submit button, because you cannot edit the form after it has been submitted to OVA. If you need to, you can click back and go back through all these pages and modify your entries to correct them if you catch any mistakes during the review step, and then you'll just return back here with the Save and Next. Once you're ready, you'll click the Submit Registration Form button. And for a moment, you'll see a success message on the top right that the registration form has been submitted to OVA. So that changes that draft status to submitted. Once you are in submitted status, that's it. It doesn't change to any other status. And it will be available in your search for 90 days. And OVA will now be able to review the form and register the victim as needed. Now, in the rare event that the form is rejected, OVA would contact the county directly. It won't show here as rejected. It just always shows as submitted, and that's it. So that's it for the walkthrough on the presentation. I'm going to now share a different screen. Okay, so here I am in the test site. You can see the registration form search is the landing page that you get to when you first log into the system. For the status, let's say I want to search for a draft that I did. I just select draft, and here's my search results. I click anywhere on the row to view it. You can see the message here, draft form not yet submitted. Click edit to return to the form. Here's the little expand collapse that I talked about earlier. I can edit to return to my draft, or I can delete this draft or go back to the search results. If If I want to create a new registration, I just click the plus button, and here's those breadcrumb steps that I talked about earlier. Going to put in a name. Date of birth. And a SID, just all digits. And I should be able to save as draft now. That way, if I hit cancel, back to search results, go to lunch, come back, search for a draft, I can see it right up here. I'm going to put in today's date. So there's my draft. I'm going to pick this up and keep filling it in. The sentence date, I will pick today. And I'm not going to put in a real docket number. Again, I'll just add a couple dockets. And note here the type of case. For an individual, I have to put a name and a date of birth. If I don't know, I can pick unknown for the sex and gender and race. The ethnicity is just Hispanic or not Hispanic. If you don't know the race, you should not select anything there. If you don't know the preferred contact method for written correspondence, you'll leave that blank. Limited English proficiency or transient, if you put anything there, add some comments. I can enter an international address that shows 3 lines here. For domestic, I'll be able to select the state and add a 1, 2, or 3 line address. If you have an email address, you can add that here. And any phone numbers. For the type of involvement, I'm going to pick victim of crime. If none of these other applies. If I click yes for minor victim, the minor victim section appears. And if I select, does the victim want to register for SAVN? If I select that, I will get a SAVN page when I'm done with this page. To add a minor, I just fill in the fields and click add at the end. And I can add all the kids that I need to add. Remember to click add after each one. If there are also deceased family members to add, I can put in their names. And if I have it, the relationship to deceased. And click the add button after each one. Any additional comments? Now, I did indicate that the victim survivor wanted to have 7 automated messages, so I'm going to check the email box and go ahead and choose which language and method that they want to have those notifications sent to. And here's my last page. I can just look over everything, make sure that it's correct. I had entered more than one docket, so there is a little down arrow here to view what I entered. And each collapsed section I can click on to review to make sure that it's complete and accurate. If I missed something, I can go back. And return to where I was. Once everything looks good, I can click Submit Registration Form. I get my Happy Success message, and I'm back on a fresh registration form search page. If later I forget, did I submit that today? I can do a search for submitted forms from today and see, yeah, I did send that in. If I want to create a form for an individual, I can go ahead and click the plus sign. And put in the sentence date for this offender. Docket is needed on every form. I just click the radio button for organization to access the organization name here. For organization and CYS, these work very similarly in that you need to have an address, a mailing address, if it's organization or CYS. But for CYS, you do also need to have a point of contact in a minor victim. So I'll select which Children and Youth Services office. An organization email address. And I'll put in the point of contact. And I can put in any additional notes here and indicate the preferred notification preference. If I click Save and Next here, I'll get an error that says mailing address is required for an organization or CYS registration. So you can pick the Children and Youth Services entity from the list, but you do need to type in the address. Automatically, the type of involvement is parent, legal guardian of victim as a minor, since this is a CYS registration, to save you that time. Also, it will automatically have yes for the case involving a minor victim. You can indicate 7 if you want to, if the caseworker wants to have notifications, but you will have to put in that minor name. Just remember to click the add button after you enter the child's name. So here I can review the different sections to make sure everything looks good and submit. So that covers searching for a form, creating a registration form for an individual or an organization that happens to be Children and Youth Services. So Penny, did you want to cover anything else or open it up for questions?
Say, let's open it up for questions, Diana.
Was that helpful for anyone? Did I lose anyone on any part of the form? I think it's pretty straightforward. So,
Penny, I have a question. This is Amy Rosenberry from Dauphin County Victim Witness.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible for all of our advocates to register, or should there be one point of contact in our office to register all victims?
Yeah, Amy, you can shoot me some information offline, and I think we can probably get all your advocates on. I worked with Jackie a bit from the DA's office, so I don't
Yes.
think it'll be a problem at all.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
And it looks like, Diana, there's one in the chat from Maggie. She said, is there a way to enter multiple adult victims in one registration form?
that's an awesome question. There are 3 places where you could put that. I would think it would be the second one might be best in the additional information text box for the co-recipient. So if you have a spouse or partner who wants to be on the same letters as their spouse or partner, you could put their name in there and indicate that. Of course, if there are people who all live separately and need to be notified and contacted separately, they should each have a separate form.
And I can, Maggie, I can also add to you. I mean, obviously, we're very excited to get this to go live, because any kind of technological advancement is always a benefit with the ability to transfer information securely. However, we do continue to vet areas that would be helpful and efficient. And if there are things that you all are thinking of that would, I mean, we definitely would take a look at them and see what's plausible and what's not. But we are all very well aware in the victim community that a lot of times we can have cases involving homicide where there are a large volume of family population. So we definitely have not forgotten about that. We wanted to make sure we had a strong foundation that was available for everyone across the Commonwealth in regards to victim services before we took a look at what would make it even better. So we have another question for a victim with multiple offenders for the same incident. Do you have to do a separate registration for each offender? It actually falls in the same vein of the question that Maggie asked. Currently, yes. However, I do think that this is an area that we're working on as well, so that we can continue to improve upon it. Diana, feel free to cut me off and add in anything if you feel like I'm overstepping anything.
So that's absolutely accurate. There is an autofill that you might have noticed was on when I was filling out the form, which saved me a little bit of time with putting in the same person's names repeatedly. So if you see that popping up when you're doing data entry and you click on the name that you need to enter and you click on it, it will fill it in for you, because at this time we don't have a copy new function.
I know it's Friday. I know it's a quiet crowd. Are there any other questions that anyone may have? Feel free to kick them in the chat or turn off your mute and let us know what you're thinking. David in the chat says that copy new function, is it in the works? Question mark. David, it is definitely something that we're vetting and discussing internally so that we can see what we can do and when we can do it. What if a victim specifically states they do not want to be registered with the OVA? Maggie, that's a great question. So we've took a lot of things into account in regards to this, and someone may very well not want further notification, and we respect that. I think probably the easiest thing we can do, and I've talked to a couple counties individually, because obviously as we were working to get this to the finish line, there were lots of discussions to be had. And one thing that I recommend, particularly in regards to victim standing, so that we can make sure that we're meeting our measures of the law, is that you very easily can send us information, and in the additional information say, this individual has absolutely no desire to be notified or registered, right? And we will just earmark that in the system, that that is not to happen, that they're not going to be anything. And then that way that transfer occurred that Act 77 is requesting. And at the same time, the victim's desire has also been acknowledged. We have had scenarios that, you know, a few years later, that victim may reach out to us and be like, hey, I really do want to be involved now. I wasn't ready then. And then that's absolutely fine. We can re-engage that process. But it is definitely an area. It's probably one of the biggest reasons whenever Diana and her team worked with us that we really wanted all the additional information fields. It's not something common in IT that we love because it's often something that free fills. So there's no real way to kind of vet that data appropriately. I don't know if I'm doing that justice, Diana, but in this particular case, because we knew there'd be much information that we needed to share that couldn't necessarily be captured in a drop down or a yes or no, we made sure that those were available fields in almost every page. So I really recommend that's probably one of the best ways to make sure that we're meeting the need of doing what we're supposed to do, but at the same time meeting the need of the victim. So another question in chat, I'm trying to keep up. Once someone is registered, how is OVA reaching out to the victim so we can inform the victims ahead of time what to expect? How we tend to work it, and it really is, you know, dependent on your county and when your county prison is transferring to the state. We do not send the notification of registration until the actual offender reaches the DOC. And then that allows a little bit of time in between sentencing and when that particular offender has reached the gates of the State Correctional Institute. Now, in a perfect scenario that you're providing the information in sentencing, it's a few weeks, sometimes a little bit longer, and we're sending the notification. However, we do know there are scenarios where the offender will be in the State Correctional Institute when you register them, or even where they might be out of state and it might be a while. Also, though, you can control if you want a particular reach out to happen. You can put all that in the additional information. If you would like us to email something specifically, or the victim only prefers email, those type of things, please put that in that section so that we can make sure we're meeting the needs. But generally speaking, we will provide the notification upon the offenders reach to the State Correctional Institute. And it'll be in the preference that you select. So if it's email or mail, etc., that's how it will work. If there's a particular situation where we need to utilize the TTY machine, we have that as well. So that would be the best answer that I can provide you for that. Okay, next question. Do you reach out to victims to get more information like driver's license number or how they would like to be notified? At times we don't have that information. We do have, when we send out a registration form, we encourage any kind of additional information they provide us with so that it will be helpful to do that as well. And then the follow-up question for that was, do you provide the information in their native language? So yes, if you're advising us that this individual speaks a particular language, then we're going to focus on that language. It's something that our particular office has really engaged in regards to translation process. Also, further down the line, if the individual wishes to do something like in-person victim testimony or any of the other types of providing input, then we will provide a translator for that as well. I am hoping I answered all the questions as quickly as I could from the chat, and I spoke very rapidly for a Friday, so that's pretty impressive. Are there any other questions? And Okay, David said, I may have missed it. Is there a question about language on the form already? It is there under special needs and concerns. You can pick that they maybe are fluent in another language, and then there's additional information box right beside that. Obviously, there's numerous languages, and we wanted to give you the opportunity to free fill in if there was something in regards to that you wanted to add. I also want to tell you all that obviously this is the beginning, and we're working really hard to try to make this efficient and useful for you as well. So I do welcome you to reach out to me and speak to me, whether in person or via email. Also, if you leave this session and later you're sitting and you're thinking and you're like, I forgot to ask that question, my email address is always there and I will always respond. So feel free to send me an email, ask me the question, and we will be glad to provide you with any more information. Okay. All right, a couple more questions here. For old cases, if we are contacted by a victim who is not registered, should we do the online form or have them contact you directly? That's up to the efficiency of your office. I will tell you that there has been definitely far more pressure placed on board of pardons, you name it. And so you will definitely see scenarios where we might outreach you. I think that's definitely started once we started our collaboration with the Pennsylvania State Police, and I think it was 2015 in regards to SORNA. We really, I mean that from the very beginning at that first slide. No one can do this alone, and particularly in victim services, we definitely, the collaboration is key. So feel free to put the information. If we reach out to you and you feel more comfortable using the portal, plug it into the portal. I believe that we had a scenario where that occurred already. Also, you will continue to get notifications, obviously, about parole reviews because that's a part of the parole process. If you have a scenario where you think that individual is not registered and they're coming up for parole review, you can reach out to our office and talk to us. You can send us something in the portal. Either way, we have the ability, once this comes across to us, whatever you put in this portal, once it comes across to us, to check our system to make sure that if we already have a duplicate in the system, we're not redoing room. So please know that our system is cross-checking as well to make sure that we are providing the best information we can to the victim and also making sure they're absorbed in our system. I'm trying to skim through here. Maggie asked, do we need to register victims for all cases with state sentence or only personal injury crimes? The statute itself refers to personal injury rights crimes. It parallels them with personal injury crimes and crimes of violence. It's truly up to you in regards to what your office chooses to do. In regards to that, I do know there are a few crimes that are state sentences that aren't necessarily fall in that wheelhouse. Just know that we will notify them. We will provide them with information. I think a lot of times when you are someone that's been impacted by crime and you have never been in it like we are all, it is like a foreign location. That's the best way I know to describe it. I don't know about you guys. I can throw some acronyms around. I can make someone's head spin with all the acronyms I have. And I think the thing to stress is that that's because we've been in it. And we've been in it for a long time for some of us. So I would like to think that victim services is like a GPS. I say that to people all the time. You know, I wouldn't enter a city that I didn't know without using my GPS because I want to get around efficiently. And I want to find my way, and I don't want to necessarily get lost, but I also want to be as safe as I can on that journey. And I really think that your work and our work, it's about GPSing for the victim. And so if we can help any victim, we will do our due diligence and try to do so. So for organizations and CYS who have huge turnover in staff, can we just put the director or president as the contact person? Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest things with organizations and CYS is that ultimately, if there's an email address, that's probably most helpful. But yeah, if it's an address, that's fine. There are some we have, like, for instance, we have Walmart registered, and there are many of those. But yeah, we definitely don't necessarily go with the point of contact because there is turnover. You're correct. You guys have fantastic questions this morning. it not only is exciting because they know you're awake and out there, but it's also
Yeah.
exciting because I love questions.
I agree. These are all good.
So, all right. Well, we hope that this this training has been at least interesting, and also gave you some insight into the portal and the thought process behind it. I'd like to stress to you to definitely reach out to us if you have more questions or concerns. I think that I definitely read everything in the chat, but if you have further ones, please send them to us. And the one thing above all I stress to you is that it's Friday, and this weekend, because of all the work you do and all the tough work you do, that you take time for yourself and enjoy your weekend. And with that, I'm going to turn off the recording.